It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No!
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner of this.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down. Michael for three. Yes! She is gone!
I don't believe what I just saw!
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! You believe in miracles? Yes!
You may fire when ready.
What?
Oh, wow. We are back. Sorry we missed last week. We just forgot. We forgot all about the show. No, we didn't. I had a computer meltdown last week. Nobody wants to hear about that. Nobody gives a shit. We've got baseball back in just a matter of weeks. And then we have another topic, another hot topic, really, if you're a nerd like we are. We're going to talk a little bit about a rumor going around about our favorite franchise. I'm very, very curious to hear what all of you think tonight about that one, because I know Pete and I got a couple of soft opinions on Star Wars. We won't get into it a whole lot. We'll get into it deep. I'm talking balls deep into Star Wars tonight. And to help us do that effectively, we've got a panel of 4 here. We've upgraded. And so we have Pete with us, Elliot, the usual guys, and then we've got my brother. He hasn't been on the show for quite some time. I think it's been months, years. I don't know. We've kept him off here long enough because he didn't really contribute much. And if any of you guys are... like my son, my brother is sort of the same way. He's not going to contribute to the front half of the show, but I'm sure he'll got a lot to say afterwards. Scott, how many baseball teams does California have? Pete, count him down. 5 seconds. You don't know? He doesn't know. And I can't hear him. That's cool. Hopefully everybody else can. He didn't take himself off mute. Oh my God, am I the only one? Am I the only one talking?
No.
Oh, so we can't hear my brother for some reason. That's fine. We'll fix this here in a second, hopefully, and we'll get him on here. I'm sure he's got a mute button somewhere on the mic. He's just trying to. So he's searching for it. Use your fingertips, buddy. It should be bulging out a little bit. Just press on it. Pete hasn't moved or talked, so I'm not actually sure if he's there. So Elliot, looks like it's just me and you. It's a damn good thing you actually made it tonight. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to talk about anything. So we should probably give Pete another minute or two here. He's just frozen. He's just frozen stiff. Look at him. He's just intimidated by the content we might cover tonight. Not sure what my brother is doing. Elliot, I didn't put us in a split screen. I kind of wish I would have, but let me go over here to the boys. Scott, you're not muted on my end, so I'm not sure why we can't hear you. We could hear him before we started the show, of course, and now we can't. So we'll have to figure out. We'll have to troubleshoot here on the fly. Pete is still just frozen, and I don't know if he knows that or not. Elliot, if you can ping him for me, he's just he's in a solid state right now. So this is not going well. Oh, he did say something. Good on YouTube. Frozen. Yes, you're frozen, Pete. We can't see anything. Back. We'll just, you know what? Until we figure it out, maybe we should do this, Elliot, just for entertainment purposes only. We'll just leave his face here until we can get this ought to get our viewings up, the skyrocket, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. My brother can't figure out his sound on his end. Oh, he's gone now. Great. Now we'll have to do this all over again.
I can hear Scott now. He figured it out, so I can hear him.
Scott, say something. Oh, everything froze up on his end, so Scott's frozen now too.
See, I can hear your brother fine.
Can you? I can't hear a word he's saying.
Yeah, I can hear him fine.
Yeah,
He's
no,
good.
not me.
He's good on my end.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, there's Pete. Now Pete's good. I can see him.
I can see Pete again, and he's on. Good. I don't have to reset the camera. That's
He's
good
a little
news.
frustrated.
Do we have sound?
Yes, because he just cracked open
I
something.
hear he
and
cracked
I heard
something
it.
open. Now we just got to figure out what's going on with Scott. He froze up too.
No, he's good.
I can't hear him. I can't hear him. That's really weird. I can't hear him on my end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys can hear me. Okay.
This week's off
Yeah.
to a great start.
It is. Jesus Christ, man. Oh boy, there's a lot of money been thrown at this, and
We're gone for a little while, and everybody just
oh boy. I'm not sure what I need to do with him here. I can disconnect him from the rendezvous session. Scott, is there any way you could close down and just come back in? Maybe I can hear you. I don't know why I can't.
Ron, do you maybe have him muted?
Nope. I'm looking at the rendezvous dashboard right now. I do not have him muted.
I hear him. Do you hear him, E?
I hear him.
Huh.
This is perfect.
It is. It's actually great. Yeah, no, I really can't hear him. This is strange.
This is like being in an Xbox Live party.
It is.
Or a Zoom call at work, right? You know,
there you go.
hey, let's have a happy hour, and then everybody just sits there and stares at each other. Everybody tries to figure out who's going to talk, and try not to talk over themselves. It just kind of works out that way, I guess. All right, I see him again.
I like your name, Scott.
Yeah.
God damn it! Now I can hear him. Okay,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I've got you now. Okay, well, let's reset this for a minute. Should I just do the intro music again?
Welcome to Team of Rivals
I think you should
podcast.
just start over.
Fuck. All right.
It's a trap.
There, the abbreviated version. Welcome to the show, everybody. Holy shit. We've had some issues tonight. Pete's in front of a green wall. That's fine. I didn't have time to adjust it. Elliot is the only one. Fortunately, Elliot was able to make the call tonight because he's the only one I was able to talk to for like the first 3 minutes, and I was hung out here to dry. I just wanted to shut everything down and just go to bed there for a couple seconds. But we're all here. Everything seems to be working. We're up on all the channels that we're supposed to be. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, not sorry. None of you are paying anything for this. You get, in the famous words of my co-host, you get what you pay for, people. And this is what you're stuck with. Let's start this off, though, talking about baseball actually having a date of return. How do we feel about that? And then how do we feel about... look, I haven't checked in on this for a couple days, right? I do that Two Birds show on Tuesdays. I talked to Craig Mish and Tara Wellman. We had a long conversation about this, but I have not looked in on any more players if they've opted out or not, guys. But I know there were 4 names, at least by Tuesday, that opted not to play. Probably the most notable would have been Ian Desmond, Ryan Zimmerman, and then the other 2 are, I think, Ross. Is it Mike Ross or Jake Ross from also from the Nationals? And there was Mike Leake from the Diamondbacks. So they all have their own reasons for it. And I'm a little, I don't know. I think we're going to see more names, to be honest with you. I think there's probably going to be a few more. They're going to opt out, and some of them might not even have a choice.
Practices are about to start, right? I mean, we're a few days away. I would assume that we would have heard who's not going to be there at this point. Right. I mean, you got to assume that these guys have already thought about it and have said, I don't care what the league says, I'm sitting out this year. So once Zimmerman and Desmond and Leake and, who was the other guy?
Ross, I think Jake or Mike.
Yeah. Had decided to sit out and announced that they were going to sit out, that you would have seen the dominoes kind of fall from all these other teams of players who weren't going to play. But so far, we really haven't heard anything. I honestly, I don't think it's going to be too many. I mean, from the other day when somebody said to David Ross, hey, what are you going to think about, the World Series winner this year? And he's like, if they're giving out a trophy, I freaking want it. I mean, I got to feel that a lot of guys will probably feel like that kind of like the 2013 NHL when they only had half a season, but it was still a fantastic season. It still was great.
Well, this one will be interesting to say the least.
It will, and I know these are different circumstances, but you gotta feel like these guys. Okay, it's instead of this prolonged marathon, this is a sprint.
Now you're starting to sound like Rizzo. Starting to sound like Anthony Rizzo. This prolonged marathon. Oh, we play too many games.
Too many games.
Pete, I want to hear you weigh in on this. So there's 4 guys that have opted out. I'm not shocked that there have been a few. I suspect that as guys start getting tested, there's going to be a few more players not able to play. At least not right away. And I think there's going to be a handful more that are going to opt out. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay. Very good.
We talked about it last time. It's hard for me to care. We got jerked around so much this off season, and I've got other things that are more important to me right now.
All of us do, to be honest with you, and that's why it's been a tough. Baseball in general has been a real tough subject for me to really focus and give a shit about. To be honest with you, Pete, we all got a lot more things that are a hell of a lot more important now for our mental well-being. Some of us need that off to the side. Maybe it's not front and center, but it's part of that thing that kind of feels and smells normal. And it certainly is not going to hurt to have the sport back. But tell you what, you're not finding me posting every day on Twitter, I miss baseball. No, I do, but not enough to fucking whine about it every day. I don't. I get bigger things to worry about.
I don't even miss baseball.
Oh my God. Scott, how bad do you miss
My life
baseball?
has moved on. I don't miss baseball.
All right. How much do you miss baseball, Scott?
It keeps me awake every night. I mean, cold sweats, fetal position.
Hey, this is a question from YouTube.
Yep.
The real hard-hitting questions. What is everybody drinking tonight?
Oh, yeah.
This is from Roundtable Decision.
Tonight I am totally naked. Oh no, sorry. Tonight I have 2 women.
No, fantastic. That's a good ale.
Okay. That's an interesting beer name, and Pete has never had that actually.
Yeah, he has. Pete's had that a lot of times.
I didn't know this is a comedy podcast.
It's kind of turned into that, Scott. Since we try to be, and it just doesn't work that way.
We failed.
It's unintentional comedy podcast.
That's right. That's right. It's trying to be, but not doing very well at it. Comedy podcast. But
I'm pretty sure Ron's drinking the Claw.
I am tonight. I've got it in my. I love these things. This Yeti is actually pretty awesome. It's designed for these types of cans. But the problem with the Yeti is it's got a little bit more weight to it. You don't know when you're getting empty. You really don't. Now, you could have that. By the angle of your pour there, you must be getting empty, but you really can't feel that way. But these things are great. And I learned my lesson because I have a big one of those big water ramblers with a lid on it. I was taking it to the gym. I use it here. If you have a black one of these outside, holy fuck, it is liquid hot magma if it's out in the sun. So I got smart this time and I got a white one. And it works like a charm. But yes, you're right, Elliot. It's White Claw. It's a little bit of a mix tonight of different flavors. I find myself after about 3 of anything, I don't like the taste of it anymore, and I like to pivot to something else. But it is White Claw nonetheless.
Does anybody remember that first season episode of The Office where Jim slowly puts quarters in Dwight's phone and then takes all of them out when he gets used to the heavy weight? And he hits himself right in the face with the phone. Is it similar concept? Like you get used to the weight and then you just
I think so, yeah.
And just smack yourself.
That's part of it. That's part of it for sure. It really this is an unnecessary thing for me. I mean, honestly, guys, Pete, you know me as good as anybody here. Do I even have a drink open long enough to need a fucking koozie for it? And I don't think I do.
Usually no.
Yeah, so I mean, really, it's really kind of stupid that I have them, but I have it.
So I've got the one similar to your Yeti. I've got the Brewmate because I don't make the bucks to buy the Yeti.
Oh,
so I've got the Brewmate, which is nice. But
you want to make one of those YouTube videos? Those over 24 hours, is there still ice in this damn thing? We can do that.
Because I'm in Tennessee and it's $10 for a fucking 6-pack of White Claw. I am on the budget Natty Light Catalina wine mixer tonight.
Oh, Catalina lime mixer.
Lime mixer. Yeah.
So
I tried that.
Stock up before you left, Elliot?
I didn't fucking realize it was going to be that goddamn expensive for a 6-pack of White Claw in Tennessee, where gas is $1.85.
I know, it's like you're in a different decade as far as gas goes, and then all of a sudden you think you're in the 70s and you look over and there's White Claw in the goddamn refrigerator and you're like, where am I? You know, what's happening?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to get down to Charlotte tomorrow and
that's right. That's right.
Get that cheap White Claw. So,
let's get back to baseball for a second. So I want to talk about a subject here that could be a little touching, and Ian Desmond's statement he made when he was opting out. Now, ultimately, Pete, this is one of the things that drives me nuts. The clickbait shit or the headlines didn't really reflect why he was opting out. It said it, and then it started talking about racism in the clubhouse and all the other things that he brought up. So a lot of people, and my biggest pet peeve with fans, and even my own, are the headline barkers. The ones that don't bother reading the content, they bark at the headline and they'll type some jackass comment in a comment. Fine, you know what, to each his own, but that is not why Ian Desmond opted out. Ian Desmond opted out because he has a pregnant wife and 3 kids at home. It's a hard time, it's a confusing time right now, and he feels that the place he's needed the most is at home to be a dad right now and a husband. That's why he opted out. He chose to mention all the other things that were in his head that he'd bottled up for a very long time throughout his career, and now he's choosing to bring that to light. Now, some of it was sparked by him going to Sarasota, Florida, going out to the Little League fields that he basically grew up on, and seeing what kind of shitty condition they were in, and realizing that baseball, kids like him, black or biracial, they struggle to get access to the game that we all used to have growing up. Guys, playing baseball for me growing up, it was easily accessible. There were a lot of neighbor kids in the neighborhood where we could get together and play a pickup game. We probably didn't have 18 people. We had maybe 10 or a dozen, and we could make it work. And
it was accessible, but I hated every minute of it.
You hated every minute of it because it was hot. And and I'm not even sure you had the right glove. If it was, I'm not even sure you're supposed to throw with your right hand. You were a complete jackass.
I had a winter mitten. It was like one of those, it was just a mitten.
Like an isotoner glove?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I used to ride my bike down to the ball fields, and it wasn't just one ball field. It was fields. Mm-hmm. It was a couple of little leagues, a couple of middle leagues, and then pony league fields. We had the pick of the litter all throughout our ages, and we could always
it was an easy thing.
Enough people to play.
Well, it was not only that, but it was like you take your local rec leagues and everything else. Your parents had to pay a little bit to get in there, but the equipment was provided for the most part. And I guess my point is he's walking around these fields, seeing what kind of condition they're in. He sees a lineup card hanging on a fence, right? Or something. I'm paraphrasing this. I don't quite remember exactly what he said, but there's a lineup card or something he saw, but it was dated from 2015. Right? And then banners and stuff promoting travel league ball, which we know, yes, travel league ball is a popular thing for people that can afford to do it, right? That shit is expensive. And I think his point is like, if this is what baseball's become, if I was a kid growing up right now in this time, I wouldn't be able to play baseball like I did back then, right? And that to me is the most concerning part of this, is that any lessening of interest in the game. I know how we feel about it today, Pete. I'm talking like rewind like 6 months ago. Like any lessening of interest, any limiting of access to other people, to common people, low income, whatever it is.
Yeah,
having less access to their sport is
my headwind is like any parent who is of low income that can't afford to send their kids, even if they have the talent to do it on these traveling teams, won't be able to send them because they can't afford to. There needs to be a better system for these kids.
Yeah, well, it's like anything else.
To be able to do it, because not everybody has that privilege to be able to afford it.
Well, and I think you could kind of look at the way, and Pete can speak to this better than any of us, I think, but if you look at even the way education's kind of set up too, you kind of look at it in the same way. Like if my parents have enough money to get me into, advanced travel baseball at the younger ages and all the way up through when I'm growing up through my teens, I have better opportunity just by that alone, right? As opposed to that I don't have that access at all. I mean, that's just That's limiting opportunity. Look, I'm not saying anybody twisted a handlebar mustache and plotted evil for Little League Baseball, but that's just what it's become. And it's sad because we all know this. Baseball is less popular right now. It is. It's less popular. Look, guys, when we're looking up and seeing ALCS and NLCS games on Fox, FS1 and TBS, man, TBS is playing the National League Championship Series they have for like the last 6 years. TBS. Nothing against that station, but did you guys think a decade ago we'd be watching the Championship Series on fucking TBS and not like a major network? I mean, Fox only carries a random game of the week that nobody gives a shit about anymore, and the World Series. What is ESPN do the All-Star game? Did they do the All-Star game last year? They did.
Yeah. And
so, like, what the hell's happening? It's losing in pop. It's gone from a very national thing to a very regional thing. That's not good. And his statement had a lot of importance to it. And you know what? We all had awareness of Ian Desmond before. I have a lot more respect for him. That was a very thoughtful, I think, and a very powerful statement. But ultimately, it got me concerned for the popularity of the game at the young ages, right? And so that's the long-term health of the sport, I guess, is where I'm going. In a very long way, I'm worried about baseball losing that much popularity and just losing its magic. Guys, it's lost its magic for me. It really has, and I think it has for Pete, too. I can look in his face. He looks like a sad bastard right now.
No, that's just par for the course.
It's just the way my bones are built under my face, Ron. Don't be a dick. Okay, great, fine. All right, so let's, we talked about, hey, look, there's going to be, they're not doing this. Well, they're kind of doing this without doing it. They're still doing that 3-division thing right now, right? It feels like, even though the divisions are going to be set up the same way, the way they're playing the schedule out, 10 games against your own division opponents, and then you got, was it 4, right, against the
6.
4? Well, I think it's 4 because that would equal 60 games, right? Like if I played 5 AL Central teams 4 times, that's 20 games. I play my other 4 division opponents 10 times, that's 40 games. That's 60. So I think that's the way it shakes out.
Oh, I'm thinking of the 70 schedule where it was 6 against the AL teams, but it's you're right.
Yeah. So that's how it goes, which makes it kind of interesting. And everybody likes to point out, oh boy, the Cardinals get 10 games against the Royals and 10 games against the White Sox and 10 games against the Tigers. And like, well, you know what, guys? Everybody else in the division does too. And by the way, we all still get 10. We get 10, or sorry, 4 games against those opponents, and we get 10 against the Pirates. And like, well, so does everybody else. So I don't see that. I don't see the schedule as being an advantage for anybody right now. I do think that it's likely that the best teams that finish in this National League Central probably have some of the best records in the playoffs, because I think their interleague competition is definitely going to be weaker in the National League Central. But it could be a little bit of maybe a black and blue between anywhere from 3 to 4 teams, I think, in the NL Central alone. Because I think it's going to be pretty competitive. I don't see anybody running away with anything. Of course, 60 games could produce some kind of ungodly hot streak out of the gate for a month, and you pull out way ahead. And so, I don't know. It's at least a sprint is going to be interesting. And the way it lines up the playoffs is going to be interesting. But I don't know how you guys feel, Pete. Are you disappointed at all, or are you kind of aloof, like you don't care about they're not doing in the expanded playoffs? They're going to keep it at 10 teams. Are you okay with that, or did you think in this year of all this crazy shit happening, you were okay with expanded? I mean, I really wasn't sure how you felt about it.
I really don't care.
Okay, very good. Scott.
I'm here for the Star Wars content.
I know. We're going to get to it quickly. Scott, you hate it all. Why?
I don't know. It's just boring.
All right, very right, great. All right, Elliot, I'll ask you one last time. Are you glad they stayed with the 10 teams, or was it 16 okay for this year?
No, I think it makes more sense that they should have done the expanded playoffs this year, because you're more likely to get the team that's probably supposed to be there with an expanded playoff rather than limiting it to just the 10 teams. But who gives a shit? They fucked it all up. They could have been the team to save everybody, the teams to save everybody, or the sport to save everybody. But they didn't. And go fuck yourself, Manfred and Scott Boras. So
wow. Okay.
Speaking of go fuck yourself, Scott Boris, have any of you guys watched that documentary on Netflix, Screwballs?
No.
No, I have not.
So take the hour and a half. It's a pretty humorous take. The main character in it is the guy who was at the center of the biogenesis lab in
fantastic.
Miami, except that it's put in context of little kids. So all of the reenactments are done with little kids, and they do a pretty good job of getting some of these kids who look exactly like the ball players and the agents and whoever. And the funny thing is when like you've got, say you had Ron doing the voiceover and he's like, I don't fucking care, except that it's this little 8-year-old saying, I don't fucking care. That's hilarious. But the best part about it is in the whole Alex Rodriguez scandal, who was right at the center of the whole thing? Fucking Rob Manfred.
Oh, nice. Okay. I'll have to check that out.
Didn't even realize it. As soon as I saw him, I started throwing things at the TV. There were soft things I didn't want to have to go get a new TV for me. But I lost my shit. It was such a relaxing Sunday, and then I had to deal with fucking Rob Manfred.
Why do you do that to yourself, Pete?
I didn't know it was coming.
Oh, yeah, that guy. I guess.
I mean, you know, if it wouldn't get us flagged on the podcast, I mean, that could be this week's episode title. Fucking Rob Manfred.
Yeah, we can always fudge it out.
Something better.
Yeah, we've you know, we sometimes stumble on a good title. That's a candidate. We'll put that in the running. I guess to polish off baseball as much as I care to right now, I saw. The one thing that this will probably help out this year, and we all experience it in some way, whatever team we're rooting for, is that what I love about a shortened schedule like this, there is no time to let somebody find themselves, right? There ain't any time to do that shit. So if you've got a player or two that just can't figure shit out, they couldn't figure it out last year, kind of struggled the year before as well, like, the leash has got to be shorter this year. You're just being stubborn if it's not.
Speaking of struggle bus, Jose Quintana not going to start the season because he cut his thumb doing dishes and had to have 5 stitches put in with microscopic surgery. So, yay!
Hey, forget about Quintana. Here, and Ron, you're going to want to flag this one and record it.
Okay.
Here we go. Here's who's going to benefit the most from the shortened season on the Chicago Cubs. You ready for this?
Yes.
Ready.
Jason Hayward.
Yeah. You know what? You could be right because it's going to be 50-50 though, right? Like he's either going to be
he's
hot.
gotten off to a hot start every time except his first season with the Cubs, and then it just goes down and down and down. 60 games. He's going to be an MVP candidate.
Yeah, see, and it's a lot different, I think, for the Cardinals in regards to like a guy like Goldschmidt, who doesn't start out hot.
He was terrible in the first 60 games last year.
Yeah,
he was awful. Everybody was
okay.
Like,
Well, I think we're taking it to a
sign an extension on this guy.
Yeah, well, that's that's Cardinals Nation right there. I mean, always a well thought out response. You know,
Carpenter should be playing first base right now. He's hot.
Fuck me, really. You know, it's really sad. It's most of the time my own fans get me to not like these players more so than the players get me to not like them. It's the fans that do this to me. I hope it's gone. I don't want to say this because as soon as I say it, I'll see it tomorrow. I don't want to hear any of the salsa shit this year at all. None of it. So stupid. Yeah. None of the little chip eating crap at second base, guys. I mean, come on. That had to piss them off. Like, you think Matt Carpenter at some point in time is like, all right, this is cool for like 3 days, man. And it got really stupid really quick. Please stop doing that at second base. You're not the first to ever hit a double. And why are you thinking about salsa and chips at second base anyway? You should be thinking about getting your ass home. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd rather, you know what? I'll accept it this year. I'll accept one of those little things after they cross home plate, but not 1 fucking second before that. How about that?
Can they slide into home plate doing that on the side?
I don't know if the hand motion's quite like that, Elliot, or that rapid, but we'll move on. Let's talk about some other shit because I'm kind of done. Let's not talk about baseball anymore. I know my brother just woke up, so we'll talk about. Look, every swinging dick has a YouTube channel. Everybody can talk shit all they want. They can bring things up. They can. There's a guy out there, and I don't know how right or wrong he's been. I just know I look at every YouTube video title that he throws up, and it's everything will shock you. Like literally, he says he's like one of those clickbait things you see on Facebook or Instagram or everything. Like, and what they did next will shock you, and then you watch it, and it like never shocks you. Like that was stupid.
No, Ron, you got that wrong. It won't shock you. It will shock you.
Yeah, right.
You got to get the shock.
It will blow your mind, and literally, it's never blown my mind. Like nothing I've ever seen. His name's Mike Zero. Batshit crazy stuff he puts out there on Star Wars. I haven't taken inventory on how many times he's been right or wrong, but it's just so it's just so outlandish. Some of the things that are brought up there, it's like he's just unbelievable from the get-go. However, there are a couple out there that have been right on occasion. There's this well-known Jedi Paxis from Reddit who pretty much knew the entire plot and everything from The Rise of Skywalker. There are a handful of others that are usually pretty spot on making Star Wars. Star Wars Newsnet has been right a lot of times. Hollywood Reporter has been right several times with things that have leaked through them. I've never heard of this guy before. He goes by, is it Cock Doom or Doom Cock? I don't remember the order of that. Is it Doomcock?
I believe it's Van Doomcock.
Van Doomcock. That might be the episode title. But it's like DVD Overlord or something on YouTube. But he put out a video about a plan, or at least a device that Lucasfilm can use to not just retcon the sequel trilogy, but to basically put it in the Legends category, where it didn't really happen. It doesn't count. It's still a Star Wars movie. Guys, we're glad you enjoyed it, just like you read the old Legend books, the Thrawn trilogy. Like, it's there. It happened. You all enjoyed it when you were in the theater, but it doesn't count. There's talk of, there's rumor at least, amongst YouTubers that is a thing. So tonight, I don't necessarily want to get in right now to whether we believe it or not, because I think kind of if I go around the wheel here, I don't think a lot of us really believe that there's a lot of merit behind this. I more so want to talk about how much we would actually enjoy this actually being a thing. So while we've put him on mute most of the night because we've been talking about something he has zero interest in, Scott, I know you've seen the video. You've seen others that have put out a YouTube video based on what this guy's Van Doomcock, whatever. You've seen it. So what are your thoughts on it? I mean, you can tell us whether you buy it or not, but I'm guessing you probably don't. I can't hear him. Oh, sorry. Start all over, Scott. I got you.
Okay. Did you have me on mute?
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let me start with the user known as Doom him for a while. He's actually he's one of them that revealed the test screenings for Rise of Skywalker, how they didn't go over good. Mm-hmm. He was the one that first broke that Rey was actually Palpatine's granddaughter. He broke that Captain Marvel on the Marvel side of things. They're having issues, so they hired a new writer director, and that they're dropping her from she was going to be the main spotlight going forward to basically take Captain America's spot. They're switching gears, and now they're using Scarlet Witch. So I mean, he does have like insider track somehow. So I'm kind of actually starting to believe that might be a little true. But if they do get rid of the sequel trilogy, I mean, I think it's the same thing as the Legends stuff. You can look at it as it did happen. You can take it, you can leave it. I guess it's the same thing as the new Star Trek films. I mean, they didn't really necessarily erase what happened with the old ones. It's like a new branched reality. And I think it's kind of the same thing where this did happen. It's just in its own kind of, closed off universe. So I like it. I'd like to see them go back and maybe do something different.
Yeah, but that's just, it's so difficult to kind of think about, like, that means that, I mean, I don't see any of the previous characters coming back and doing anything then.
Well, it's impossible to get them all,
Mark
right?
Hamill, Harrison Ford. I mean, we've got a bunch of people who have died in the last 3 years. So you really can't continue on the Skywalker saga without a few of these actors.
Pete, I know you got some thoughts swirling around up there. So go ahead.
Yeah, completely separate from the story, the actual story element.
Mm-hmm.
In the current environment, Disney, a multi-billion-dollar company, is going to tell a female lead and a black man, and tell the culture that their characters don't exist anymore, or that their characters have no relevance. They're going to put themselves out there, and they're going to create that statement when they've already announced that they're going to redo Splash Mountain to take away any references to Song of the South. They've already done a number of other things to their parks and to their content in order to remove troublesome stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And in the current environment, you're going to take away a female lead and a black actor and basically say that their stories didn't happen. I don't see Disney putting their asses out there like that. It's just not going to happen.
No, and Pete, to kind of build off what you're saying, I mean, it's a little bit different, but look, you think they're going to come out and go, yeah, we admit that much defeat? I mean, when you wipe something out, you're basically come out and saying that what we just invested in, what we put out there, we're acknowledging it was all shit, and we're going to set it aside, and we're going to restart it, and it didn't count, didn't matter. Yeah, we're not going to get Carrie, Mark, and Harrison back. We can't get Carrie back for one. If they even talk to Harrison about it at this point, it's going to be like, who?
What?
Yeah, he's not going to care, and he's not going to do it again. I don't think Hamill would be back. It's just, to me, it's like it's a big admission to failure. It's going to be a very hard thing to explain to the public, not to guys like us. We would understand it if they put a device in, like JJ did with Star Trek, Elliot, the point you were making. If they did that, fine. People like us, fans that are into it as much as we were and understand it, we would understand what they're doing and how it's done. Man, imagine explaining that to the people that kind of half-ass know, right?
Yeah.
There are still people to this day that are confused as shit over Star Trek. They don't quite understand, so they don't even bother to figure it out. And so it's okay. So we've all dealt with the reality of it, but I want to get into a little bit of conversation about how they might do it. If it were a thing, if it were to happen, how would they go about doing it? And how much would we like or dislike this thing kind of being done? Pete, you made a very good point, but it doesn't mean that if they decided to redo it or take it in another direction, they couldn't still have a female lead. They still couldn't have a black character with a major role. They could still choose to do that. So I don't think that saying that these two character types, they're not relevant, we're not going to go forward with it was a mistake. I don't think people take it like that. I think the bottom line is, and we know this, we all know this, the story sucks, right? The whole sequel story sucked. The whole premise sucked. Had nothing to do with the actors or what color their skins were or what gender they were. Had nothing to do with that. The story itself was just not good from beginning to end. Now in retrospect, looking at the thing as in a whole, it was a fucking mess. The whole thing was.
Yeah, I think where they start is the Mandalorian. And if they do what we've kind of read about who they're introducing, is that Ezra Bridger, Sabine, Ahsoka storyline, where you have the world between worlds, and you use the Mandalorian to explain that, and then you can use that to retcon everything that happened, where this was a dimension where this happened,
Boy,
oh my God,
that's a tough
kill
one.
me. If that's what a fucking season of The Mandalorian is going to be, is that we're going to go through and we're going to re-explain. No, stop. We're going to re-explain the world between worlds when it was already explained in Rebels. The only people who are going to give a shit are the four of us. You're not going to draw in people who are casual fans of Star Wars with a deep dive on The Mandalorian, which does not have the same draw that the films do. You're not going to draw them into a season of a paid.
It doesn't have to be a
service to explain the world between worlds. That's just.
Well, no, I see what you're saying, Elliot. Like, I think if the rumors are true that, I mean, obviously at this point, Ahsoka is going to show up in The Mandalorian. If Ezra Bridger, also being rumored, shows up in The Mandalorian, they can make a quick reference / flashback to the Veil of the Force and just introduce the concept. I actually think the whole execution of it would happen entirely in another movie. I mean, they basically said that in the report that I read that Doomcock first put out about 2 weeks ago, that Dark Ray that was introduced in The Rise of Skywalker would be instrumental to the Veil of the Force and the all of that. So I think it would take place in its own separate movie. I don't know. It's weird. I mean, you would think that them conceding that, hey, everything we've done really kind of sucked. You don't think a studio would do that, but I mean, for another franchise, it was just announced that Michael Keaton's coming back as Batman, and they're resetting the entire universe, and he's going to basically be the Batman that's been there. That he's going to be taking Ben Affleck's place, but Ben Affleck's going to be completely erased.
But Michael Keaton wasn't standing up in London less than a month ago talking about his political beliefs and stating that he didn't care if it meant it was the end of his career, and then having the production company that just backed the 3 films that he starred in put out a supportive statement of it.
Yeah.
He didn't. There is no way that Disney is now going to undercut John Boyega and say that the work that he did is no longer a part of the Star Wars universe. It's not going to happen. This is not going to. I don't care about the storyline and whether or not it's legit. Okay, that has nothing to do with this. The time that we are in right now, story continuity, logic does not matter. All Hollywood cares about is keeping the woke mob off their asses so that they can hopefully continue to sell tickets. That's
I totally
agree. Only consideration they are going to be making about this reboot. And that's why it's not going to happen. And by the way, Ron, just so that we all have it, it's Dicktor Van Doomcock.
Dicktor Van Doomcock. Thank you. That's the most important thing that we've brought up in the last 5 minutes. I agree. There's Pete. I tend to agree with you on this. Like for a lot of political reasons, this is not something they do. But I also think you fell short so bad. Where the fuck did Elliot go? Oh, and all of a sudden the sound's gone in the background. Okay, fine. We'll trudge on without him. In fact, we'll just kind of pivot here. How about that?
Okay.
All right. So,
okay.
If he decides to come back, that's fine. I think that by kind of looking at, I don't know, man, I'm just trying to be careful about what we say here, and I know I know what kind of climate we're in, but I just think more so it's
Ron,
just,
you can't say anything worse than what I just did. So
well, I know, but it's true. Look, I'm just like can't we? I know we can't look past that kind of thing, right? We nobody can look at it and go, just the story was just bad, and people want to tie it into our like or dislike of the actors involved. Fuck, man, that had nothing to do with it. The stories were terrible.
Daisy Ridley and John Boyega. I thought they were my two favorite.
Oh, sure. I mean, how could you not love both of them? I followed Daisy Ridley on Instagram. She's a beautiful woman, and she's extremely talented.
I found nothing particularly good about John Boyega. I'm far more like Poe Dameron. I would love to see an exploration of that character. Oscar Isaac acts circles around John Boyega.
Yeah.
Of those three, of the three central characters, well, of the four central characters, right? Those three, and then you add in Adam Driver. John Boyega is by far the worst actor of the bunch.
Well, I'd say this in all fairness. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of other Boyega's work, so I'm not going to say that for him. Look, say what you want about an actress like Natalie Portman, for instance, right? Who Everybody dogs on her for the prequels, but she won a goddamn Oscar in a movie, right? And she's not
pretty clear from her other work that she was poorly directed.
And so you really kind of have to look at this dude. They put him as a character. To me, the character itself is uninteresting. They made it uninteresting. It could have been very interesting to have a stormtrooper defect and go to the Resistance, but they didn't do that. They made him horribly uninteresting. They made him a runner for the first 2 shows. For the first 2 movies, they made him on the fence, wanting to run or wanting to fight. And
see, I thought he was interesting in the first in The Force Awakens. I liked him a lot in The Force Awakens.
For about the first 20 minutes, I agree with you. And then after that, it went away for me. So it wasn't even so much about John Boyega as an actor. I in all fairness, I have to see everything else he's done to judge him on that. I look at it and go, look, this character was just written in an uninteresting way, like in a way that didn't really matter. Holy Christ. Okay, Elliot's back. We all heard you.
What?
Nothing. We're good. We're all good here. It's all fine here. Everything's fine.
Oh my God.
I turned my camera off and my mic off. Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna turn them off again, just for a second.
Or was that?
All right, that's better. Here we are. Here's what I was saying. I think it's the character that was written. Just lost. I lost interest in him. I thought they should have killed Finn off at the end of episode 2 when he was getting ready to drive that piece of shit skipper into that cannon, that ram or whatever. I wanted that. I wanted to see that. That to me would have given that character a lot more weight. I didn't mind him so much in The Rise of Skywalker, but the whole Rise of Skywalker, the more I've watched it, I enjoyed it so much on the first viewing. And every time I've seen it after that and the further distance I get from it, I'm like, this movie is just not good, man. I don't want to rank them tonight, but it's slipping. It's slipping for me. But yeah, so look, there's a specific device, and Pete was talking about this earlier. Elliot brought it up, and that had to do with the World Between Worlds, something that was introduced in a TV series, an animated series. That, I really found that interesting, and that's one thing I liked about Rebels, that they explored different aspects of the Force, different things that could happen that we hadn't seen before. They had I think the wildest that Star Wars ever got with exploring the nature of the Force was the Mortis series in Clone Wars. That was the most far out thing that happened up to that point, and I think the next step in that happened on this World Between Worlds. It was kind of awkward. It was weird. It was like, Star Wars has never gone here, but it was there, and I didn't reject it at all. I didn't love it at first either, but I didn't reject it, and I think upon seeing it a couple times, it's like, that's a device that they could potentially change things if they want to. For the reasons we've already talked about, I don't think that's even a possibility. But I want to move on from that. If they can, yes, that's a perfect device. Problem is, it appeared on a Rebels series that we know a majority of fans did not watch.
Not only didn't watch, are not even aware of.
Sure, yeah, that's fair. Right. I think that's fair to say. And so, how do you weave that in again, right? And you guys brought it up. Look, Mandalorian's wildly popular. It's going to be it's probably the most streamed show, or widely watched streamed show, I think, of last year by far, and even into this year a bit. Season 2 is going to be explosive, right? It really is. I mean, when you think about the lack of shit that Hollywood's putting out lately, one, because they're not really able. It's going to set records, I believe, in season 2. So, Pete, the one thing I slightly disagree on is I've actually look. It's not very numbers based. This is all a feeling you get when you hear people talk about things. There are people that have watched The Mandalorian that haven't even watched the sequel trilogy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying those numbers are bigger, but I think that even me, I can underestimate how many people have had interest and have actually watched The Mandalorian. My in-laws have watched The Mandalorian. They haven't even watched an episode of the sequels, right? So I'm not basing my own research or knowledge off of just my in-laws down the street. I'm basing it off of just what you kind of read and hear. I think if they were going to introduce something like this, that and the fact that we know we're getting Ahsoka back and she's been involved with the World Between Worlds, we know that at the end of Return of the Jedi, her and Sabine were looking for Ezra, if they were going to reintroduce this thing and do it, that might not be a terrible idea, regardless of the reasons that I think, Pete, I think you're pretty much spot on. I think it's more of a corporate admitting we failed thing. You've got other reasons, but I think together we're like, this thing is never going to happen. But if they were going to do it, I think they got a pretty good device to do it and a pretty good platform to do it in The Mandalorian.
Here's the problem that I have with it, right? Beyond all the political stuff. How are you going to explain it to the people whose only connection to Star Wars is the movies, right? You're going to suddenly put up a new movie and they're not going to understand what just happened. They're going to be like, wait a minute, what happened to the 3 movies that I just saw?
Mm-hmm.
What I don't understand. You can't introduce it to The Mandalorian because, just like you said, you have family who have watched The Mandalorian but didn't watch the sequels. Well, there are going to be far more people the other way who have seen the sequel films, who have only seen the Star Wars films, and have either chosen or are completely unaware of all of the rich content from Clone Wars and Rebels and Mandalorian, right? And so these people are completely disconnected from it. You're going to ask them to come back out and to see a movie that continues a story that completely cuts out the other 3. So then what are you going to do? Are you going to spend the first 45 minutes of this new movie explaining how everything that happened before didn't happen? I mean, God, talk about a snooze.
You're going to make an entire movie that's literally just wiping out the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, I think what they're going to have to do is they're just going to have to internally admit their mistake, and they're just going to have to completely separate themselves from that whole era. They're either going to have to go backwards and grow something out of this High Republic that they're going to in the publishing arm, or go back to the Old Republic, or else they're going to have to go centuries into the future. I think that they need to just get away from the Skywalker era. They can't build anything off of it.
No,
does that include firing Kathleen Kennedy?
Well, let's get to that.
She's on the outside.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, not yet. I don't want to go there yet because I know that we could probably take up an hour talking about that. No, I don't want to go there yet, Scott. I agree. I know where you're headed. Look, I think what you might see, Pete, and this is why I kind of agree with you on this, is that when Disney took over, they wanted to get the hell far away from the prequels as possible. They shunned it. They canceled Clone Wars. They went back to original stuff, right? Like as far as marketing and stuff they put in their Disney stores. And you barely saw anything. And I'm talking about the time leading up to The Force Awakens. Like you didn't see much of the prequel trilogy being promoted or even talked about, right? They went as far away from it as possible. I think what you're going to see here is now they're getting away from their own concoction, their own brand, their own thing that they did. I think you'll see some distance from that too. And now what they've discovered, and even me personally as a fan, after watching the Clone Wars, I appreciate the prequels a little bit more. As bad as they were, that storyline didn't suck as bad as what we just saw. And I think Disney, I know that's a shitty pill to swallow for them, but they've got to be facing that right now. Like this is, boy, if we could have a mulligan, we would totally play it at this point.
Well, but wait, though, Ron, are you saying, you're saying that the sequels weren't as bad, but that's with the benefit of that whole story having been fleshed out by George Lucas and Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
Come on. The sequels sucked. They're better now because of 8 seasons of content.
You mean the prequels?
Or I'm sorry, the prequels.
Yeah.
The prequels were bad films.
Yep.
They were incomplete stories. They were poorly told. They were horribly written. But because they had the benefit of 8 seasons of the Clone Wars to flesh it out, they're much better now.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
You told the whole story. All the crap that you cut out because you didn't think it was important, it proved to be important. And it proved to make it a much better story.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right.
I think the thing is we're getting into territory now where, I feel like on social media, you're seeing a lot more love for the prequels. And the reason why is because, obviously, we weren't in love with them because we had the original trilogy.
Right.
But now you have a whole generation of people.
Yes.
Those movies are old. They want the prequels because that's what they grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're going to start seeing that a lot more. There's a lot more love surrounding it because you got all these kids that, 1999 when Phantom Menace came out, now they're 21 years old. That's the Star Wars they grew up with.
Yeah, you're right, Scott.
They were all like, pod racing's the greatest thing ever.
Actually, I beg to differ. I don't see a lot of kids going, oh, the pod racing scene, man, that gives me chills. Or the first time we saw Jar Jar gave me chills. It's for them, it's going to be the first time we saw Darth Maul pop up on screen, or that lightsaber duel.
Yeah.
Like those are the things that are
the Duel of the Fates is probably like the thing that sticks out in their head.
Yeah. And the droids and everything and all that stuff was pretty cool. And so you can see as a young kid, you're looking at it much differently than you were guys in their 20s, like we were when we saw the Phantom Menace for the first time. But I really think that I want to get back to this potential of kind of redoing things. And I'll say this, like, look, I was a very casual Star Trek fan. I'd probably seen all the major films. Man, I did not watch the TV series very often, right? If I caught something, if I caught something once in a while, fine. But I sure as hell didn't go out looking for it.
Are we talking William Shatner TV series, or are we talking TNG?
Either. No. I'm talking like the New Generation or the Next Generation.
Yeah.
No, if something was on TV at the time before we had all the access to everything we have access to today, and it happened to be on, I might have caught something. But look, it didn't terribly confuse me when JJ reset the whole damn thing in 2009, right, with his new cast. And if you look at that, it's like, why did that happen, right? Is it because JJ's unoriginal, because he can't think of anything on his own?
I didn't feel like it was a reset. I just felt like it was a new story within that universe. Because you have the Shatner series, and then you have TNG, you have Deep Space Nine. I mean, there's different areas of.
Well, that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, though.
And I didn't feel like he was getting rid of any of the history. I just felt like it built upon it.
What it felt like to me, Elliot, and you just mentioned a bunch of other Star Trek offshoots that they've attempted over the years, right? None of those ever stuck, right? I think the Next Generation, the next generation might be that may in fact be the closest one. But if you look at it, it's like they've tried to do this thing and nothing's ever stuck like the original, right? Like you didn't have a Spock, McCoy, Kirk. Like that was kind of the thing, right? That's what made it work. And so, so if I'm going to do it again,
because when I look back and like I watched the Shatner series with my dad when I was little, but we also watched the Next Generation stuff with Worf in number 2, and Jean-Luc Picard and Geordi. Like that's kind of my Star Trek. Mm-hmm. I feel like.
Well, this is
so when they came out with Picard on CBS All Access, dude, I was so excited for that. And if you haven't seen it, it's a fantastic.
It's really good. It's good. Yep, I've watched it.
Of the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, no. I've watched it. I think it's pretty good. And now, I guess my point was like, JJ went back and reset that. Not reset it, but he created some alternate thing where they could tell now new stories with a young Star Trek original cast, right, of characters, not actors, and they could kind of carry that story forward. And so. And Pete's not on here anymore, but that's one of the things I kind of disagreed with him. Like, I think there's a way for them to do that and not piss off or confuse everybody, because I think that was kind of successful. Because I'm not really sure you could have done that. Okay, he's back. Let me get everybody back in here. I think it is possible. We all know it's unlikely, probably never going to happen, and it's probably a bad idea for them from a business perspective and from a PC perspective. They're not going to do this, but the device that they have in which to do it is an interesting one, to say the least, because I think there were reflections of that in The Rise of Skywalker, and next to the Emperor's throne room, where the mirrors were, one of them wasn't broken, and that's where Dark Ray popped out of, right? So the possibility is there. Like, the thing is there if they chose to do it. There's a way for them to do it.
So, Ron, where would you start? Like, if you were to reboot this trilogy, would you start right there, or would you go back? My preferences, and this might be a good subject for us to talk about. Pete and I have talked about this before. Look, I kind of, and I agree 100% with what Pete has stated. Now that it's all over, we kind of wish they never would have done it. I wish they would have just gone well beyond the timeline of where Return of the Jedi stopped. I wish they would have went 100, 200 years beyond that.
and picked it up then.
What about before that? Like way before that, like Old Republic.
Well, so we're talking about the Skywalker saga, this continuity of films.
Okay.
I think that if they were going to retcon any of this stuff, then they just kill it off as though it never happened, and they don't try to pick it back up in any way, shape, or form.
I agree. If they can't, I don't think they can redo it.
I feel more now. I feel more now that they should have probably ended the Skywalker saga with the original 6. That's really that's where it should have ended. My God, I mean, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. It's like the story wrapped up nicely there. There was a nice bow put on it. And
well, I think where they probably should have wrapped it up or should have continued on with is with Dave Filoni. I think he's probably the only one who could have told the story in a way after finishing up the Clone Wars and Rebels and doing the Mandalorian.
Yeah,
I think he's the only one that has that foresight, and he probably has the story in his head or written down somewhere in a closet where he tells the story of what happened afterwards.
Well, let me ask Pete. Let me go to Pete on this one, Scott. I want to come to you, but Pete, if you're Disney and you were going to buy Star Wars, pick it back up, carry it into the future, gosh, what would you have liked to have seen in their first set of films? Now, we all agree, like, we loved Rogue One. That actually added some richness to the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was great. Solo, I didn't think was terrible, but it's not one I want to go back and watch that often. But Pete, if you were going to do another trilogy post-purchase, like, where, just in your mind, where would you have liked to have seen this thing gone?
Wherever George Lucas said that he wanted it to go. That was the first mistake that they made, was cutting him out of the story. You know, once he sold it to them, they axed him out of his creation. That was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where they should have gone. And then beyond that, I think, you know, if you wanted to get the most out of it, right? Because obviously you're not going to make this multi-billion-dollar investment and then not produce anything for a decade. You go with George for 3 films or 4 films, however much further along he wants to take it. Then you just start auditioning story ideas. You put out the word in Hollywood that we're listening to ideas, whether it's a 1-film treatment or it's a trilogy or whatever. You bring it to us, and we want to see how interesting it is, and go with that. But don't force it. And that's what they've done. They've forced it. You know, Kathleen Kennedy came in and she had her idea of where she wanted to go with Star Wars, and it's not her story. She doesn't get Star Wars. So go with George, make your money off of his ideas, let him continue to tell his story. And then when he's done telling his story, then you go off in the universe and you allow other filmmakers who have a whole story of their own to go ahead and to produce that content. But you don't tell them what the story is going to be.
Yeah. I think I don't know. We'll see if they've learned that lesson of announcing these things like 5 or 6 years out. And of course, it's a kiss of death, right, Scott? If you're a director and you're announced on a Star Wars project that's going to be 4 years out,
it's absolutely a kiss of death for sure. Yeah. No, I think that, man, yeah, when they bought it, I guess the times were different. They bought Disney purchased Lucasfilm in 2012.
Yeah.
So they got their first movie out 3 years after purchase. I think that was a bad idea. They rushed it. I'm with Pete. They should have probably looked at what George had come up with. At the very least, they should have looked at some of the Legends material and maybe came up with something from that. I think it was a really bad idea to just do each movie at a time. Different directors, different writers, no actual concept. They should have at least had a rough outline for 3 movies versus just going. I mean,
they should have done like the Lord of the Rings, where you shoot everything all at once to make sure that continuity is working.
Yeah. Well, and Well, I think the worst part, especially like for Kathleen Kennedy, is that what else does Disney own that's successful? Marvel. They pump out 3 to 4 movies a year. They have movie storylines set up for years and years and years.
Yep.
And they can somehow manage to do this, but Kathleen Kennedy has one of the biggest, most beloved franchises in history, and they can just stumble out the gate. with one movie after another. And the other thing is they're very reactionary. So let's, with the one-off films, Solo didn't do that good. So what happened? They pulled the plug on all the Star Wars story films.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, Obi-Wan. I mean, thank God that
you know what though? I'm actually looking forward to more of an Obi-Wan series because we're gonna get more of him. If it would have been a standalone film, you're only talking a couple hours. They're gonna have to try to cram a lot of shit into that. I'd rather see a 8 to 10 episode run. So thankfully, but that might lead us to it though. But that might lead us to it. I think it is. I think you're right, Ellie. I think I know what you're going to say, and it
is the future.
Yeah, because you can invest so much more emotionally into characters when you get to watch them over the series. Look at Game of Thrones, right? I mean, try to make that into a movie. Holy shit, man! Your head would spin, and you wouldn't know anybody. You wouldn't know your ass from a hole in the ground at the end of it, and you wouldn't be emotionally invested in anything. All of a sudden, you make something into a series over an extended period of time. And I love that they're doing it like an event, right? That they're not making, like, my only knock on something like Stranger Things, although it's wildly popular, is that when it comes out, like, you can watch the whole damn thing, you can binge it in a day, which is kind of cool. Oh, look at that. I didn't even see that. That wasn't choreographed.
I saw that earlier.
But, I like that they're making an event because we all get to watch it roughly the same time and then talk about it at the same time, and then talk about what's going to happen the next time. That's a smart thing to do. I'm glad they're doing it like that. But so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I know we were
good.
My whole issue with this, I have a lot of issues with the sequel trilogy. God, look, man, this whole First Order thing, guys, has never sat well with me. It's just really kind of stupid. Look, I get it. Yeah. If an empire was going to be reborn, you've got TIE fighters that look like they're a little more robust and sturdy. You've got everything that's kind of similar, but it's like bulkier or built better. I understand that. My biggest issue with this whole first order notion, other than knocking off the Death Star with a planet, was basically like, oh great, so you stole 1 billion babies to make a stormtrooper force. Like, Jesus Christ, wouldn't a better answer have been those First Order troopers were all fucking clones to begin with? Like, wouldn't that have been the smarter thing to do? Right?
They wanted to follow the steps of the Jedi. I mean, Jedi stole babies.
I guess. I don't know, Pete. What do you think about that? That's been my biggest issue with this lazy-ass explanation for how the First Order rose to power so quick. Is stealing like 1 billion babies and nobody noticed in the Republic.
Really, the reason that the First Order rose to power so quick is because the entire production process was too lazy to come up with a better story. But a new villain. They just decided to rewrite the films again. I mean, look, you alluded to it before. J.J. Abrams hasn't had an original idea since Lost. And I even question he probably got that from some movie in the 40s anyway. We just haven't found it yet.
I think that was Damon Lindelof that came up with that.
So there you go.
I think that was him. So
there you go. And Alias isn't an original idea. It's just a rewrite of La Femme Nikita. So okay. So J.J. Abrams has never had an original thought for any of his creations. So
isn't Alias based off of Jessica Jones?
No, it's based off of La Femme Nikita. Go back and rent it.
Yeah,
it's a much better 80s movie. It's fabulous.
Jessica Jones, it came out in a comic book named Alias, but that was after the TV show.
Okay. So I have a question about, have you guys read the J.J. Abrams cut that was demolished by Disney and Kathleen Kennedy because they didn't want to see...
I don't know it in detail, Elliot.
The what?
I don't know it in the detail that you might know. So if you could recite some of the biggest deltas between what we saw versus the differences.
J.J.
Sorry,
Abrams.
This is my marketing talk coming out, and I shouldn't do that.
His cut of the movie for the final movie was over 3 hours long. There was a lot of detail that he was going to go into between the relationship between Rey and Kylo that they cut out, and there was a lot more explanation of what was going on with the like that beginning scene where he's on the planet getting the holocron. Like, there was a lot of explanation about what it was and why he was going after it that they totally cut out of the film.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't want to see it.
Well, so right now, I just started this today, and it wasn't because we were doing this tonight, but I did download the Audible Rise of Skywalker extended version, right? You're right, Elliot. It does get into more detail of what that thing meant, what it was. He didn't really know exactly what it was when he went to get it. He didn't know what it was going to do for him.
Because Luke never explained to him what those Sith holocrons were. And the only reason why we all know it is because in Rebels, it's explained. And if you're not a fan of that, you're probably like, what the hell is this thing and why is it important?
This ancient GPS device is what we look at it as, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which it's more than that.
Which is it should have just said Tom on the side of it.
Yeah. You think they smell bad on the outside?
Yes, interesting.
Well, like Ron, I think we talked about that it was really awesome that he had the proper chords for that Sith holocron also.
Exactly, right? Like no. Like you if they wanted to reflect reality, he would have been pissed. He would have slammed it down like fuck, and he would have stopped by a space Best Buy, had to get the right cord.
Yeah.
And like that's shit, like man.
You got a USB-A to a USB 3 that I can use to plug into this holocron.
Nope.
Please.
Just happen to have these like magical suction cup cables that tell my Navicomputer exactly where to go.
Yeah, that's like if he found an iPod Mini with a 12-pin connector and he's trying to use a lightning cable in it. You know.
Yeah, you would be like frustrated. You'd be like, "Fuck, I had one in my other ship, and I didn't bring it."
Nerds.
Yeah, that's exactly. That was stupid. And Ray must have had a set on the on Luke's Red 5 X-wing as well that magically plugged in, I guess. But I guess we can come to a consensus here. Look, this whole not reboot, but this whole wiping the sequel trilogy shit out is. Man, this is a bunch of fans concocting some stuff and coming up with possibilities. And yeah, there's a vehicle there to do it. It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen for a lot of reasons. They're not going to admit defeat. They're not going to look. They're not going to wipe out everything that they've put out. They're not going to wipe out stupid ass Disney Batu Galaxy's Edge thing that nobody fucking even knows what Batu is anymore. I mean, like when you're a casual fan, do you know what Batu is? Right, you talk about egregious things, Pete, about what common people don't know about. Like, what the hell is Batu? Like, there's nothing familiar. Like, you walk in, there's really not that much familiarity with the Star Wars galaxy. You walk into Batu, the whole Galaxy's Edge. Like, okay, this looks cool, but I don't really know where I'm at. Like, if you took a blindfold off of somebody, you're like, "Fuck, is this? Is this okay? It looks like a spacey kind of trader's outpost thing, but not really sure what genre it's from. If you told somebody it was Star Trek, they would believe you in a second. What they needed to do in something like a Disney park was make it so goddamn familiar, hit you right over the head that this is a Star Wars theme park, and it's not. It doesn't feel like that. We know it because we know shit. Like we pay attention.
Well, when we went in February, my wife she was like,
bored.
Okay.
My kids were bored.
What is this? Okay. Oh, there's a Millennium Falcon. Oh, okay.
Yeah, what's that aluminum? Is that the aluminum Falcon? What is that called? You know, I mean,
the aluminum Falcon. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many missteps. Like but they've invested so much they're never going to erase it. So I think
it won't be erased. But I do think going back to kind of what we alluded to earlier, there was a rumor that Jon Favreau actually approached Disney to come up with some concepts, and that's how The Mandalorian came about, because he watched The Last Jedi and he was just like, what are you guys doing with Star Wars? And so and the rumor right now is that there is like a almost
exact same thought I had when I watched it. Exactly.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's a thought, or there's a rumor going on that there's a civil war within Lucasfilm between Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau on one side and Kathleen Kennedy on the other, and they're trying to push.
Well, I can believe
out.
that. I mean, that would be an easy theory to believe, honestly. But looking at, and Star Wars is such a tease, right? I mean, look, it's like the minute you lose hope in it, you're like, what the fuck? I'm checking out of this because this is not fun to watch anymore. And then you get something like The Mandalorian, and then you get the Clone Wars wrapping up, and you're like, just when you think Star Wars has lost the ability to move me at all, or blow my mind, like you watch The Mandalorian, then you watch the Clone Wars. God damn, guys! I mean, I could spend another hour talking about just how the Clone Wars wrapped up. And I know we've already done that.
Or even watching the gallery series after The Mandalorian and seeing all of that.
That Kathleen contributed like
zero.
My least favorite parts of all of those documentaries is when she talks.
But the funny thing is if you notice everybody when she talks, like everybody else is like feeding off each other. There's excitement.
They're just like,
she's sitting there and she's just going, yeah.
On the set of E.T.
Doesn't say anything.
Scott.
They'll let her talk, and then they move on to the next thing.
Yes,
Scott, you're absolutely right. They're being quiet and polite because she's the boss.
Yep, that's exactly, and you can totally read that. I mean, it's unfortunate. I'm sure she's smart. I'm sure she's great at what she does, but I think
she's not. She's a terrible typist.
Well, as I say, I think she's just total wrong
for Star Wars.
The wrong person for Star Wars. Absolutely.
Well,
and I'm really hoping that, Kevin Feige from Marvel, the president of Marvel, he's coming along and he's going to be making his own Star Wars movie. And I hope that maybe, I don't know, just if it's a catalyst to get her out, that would be fantastic.
I just wonder how good she really is as a producer. I mean, yes, part of the job of being a producer is personal relationships, but come on.
Yeah.
You started as an assistant to Steven Spielberg. I mean, talk about having a leg up, right?
Yeah.
So she got to put her name down as producing E.T., the Indiana Jones trilogy, Jurassic Park. None of those were her ideas. None of those were her stories. She was just jumping off of what somebody else had come up with. So, I mean, really, how much credit do you give her for being a good producer? It just seems to me that she's been in the right place at the right time.
She may be good at managing people, but she shouldn't be a part of their creative process. There's plenty of people like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni who have proven themselves currently to be able to take these stories and just send them in such a direction that it almost blows your mind. And those guys hiring the right people, like the guy who made the music for The Mandalorian, holy smokes. I mean, genius.
Well, and that's, again, I kind of go back to, Lucasfilm's sister company, or their Marvel arm, Disney.
Yes.
Just
that little arm.
Yeah, just that little arm. But I mean, Kathleen Kennedy, it's very apparent she doesn't have a passion for Star Wars. Now, on the Marvel side of things, Kevin Feige, he was. This actually makes her look worse, Pete. How you brought up that she was just Steven Spielberg's assistant, kind of snowballed from there. Kevin Feige was Richard Donner's assistant, and he actually learned, and he learned all these things, and now he's the president of Marvel, and he's the one that steers the ship and helps come up with all the ideas for every single movie. Now, if a director who has a passion comes in and that's what they want, and they say, hey, here's your idea, I think we should do this, he'll follow that, because he wants the directors to have their own say so. She's just a total wrong fit, because obviously she's either sticking to what she thinks as a non-passionate fan, as probably thinking more business wise, this would work, this wouldn't work. I mean, corporate fingerprints are all over the sequel trilogy with how the throwbacks, the nostalgia, the lazy ass storylines and plots. I mean, there's so much rehashing of the original trilogy.
Well, and think of the Thor movies with Marvel, and the first one was pretty good, and then the direction the second one went, and then everybody knew that Marvel needed to take the next movie somewhere else, and you got this crazy guy Taika Waititi coming in and probably pitching this part of Thor, and taking it in some totally weird ass direction.
With
and
Jeff
Kevin
Goldblum,
Feige
by
was
the way,
like,
with Jeff Goldblum, which was
Yes.
a perfect choice.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no,
and Kevin Feige was like, let's fucking do it. I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's the they need to take risks. They need to take chances.
Yes.
And you know, that's the thing with Star Wars. I think it could be the same way. And you kind of saw a little bit with Solo, but with Marvel, you know, after phase 2, you know, with all the stumbling blocks of like Thor the Dark World and you know, Avengers Age of Ultron, I think they realized that these movies need to be a subgenre within the superhero film. So, you know, you got Captain America, who's like a political thriller. You got Guardians of the Galaxy, that's a funny sci-fi. You know, then you've got, you know, Ant-Man, that's like a family-friendly comedies. And, you know, and then, so then you got the Avengers movies that are just the big build-up. So I think Star Wars needs to do that. They need to have their own subgenre
Scott,
films.
I think they dipped their toe in that water, Pete. And I'm curious what you have to say about this. You mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy. They tried to make something that's a little bit lighter, like maybe a little bit more comedy. I think they originally had the notion to do that maybe on Solo, and then got cold feet and didn't do it.
They fired the 2 original directors.
And it's unclear why. I mean, you heard conflicting reports. You heard that it was basically meritless. You also heard that Lord and Miller were locking themselves up and not participating in the process, that they weren't moving it forward. So who knows the reason why? But you're right, Ron. You know, is the Star Wars universe that sacred that it can only be one kind of story?
Well, and you think about it too, Pete. I mean, I know we disagree a little bit, maybe a little bit on The Last Jedi. I think you enjoyed it a little bit more than I did. But, like, you had to seriously go, shouldn't Star Wars be fun at the end of the day? Right? And I think that's where we end this. Is like, shouldn't these movies be fun to watch? That you want to go back and watch them? Like, who didn't watch the pre-release cuts of this in their own studios and go, fuck, guys, this Canto Bite scene sucks. What we've Luke Skywalker, like, fans are not gonna. Look, I like the cynicism because I like Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill was playing Mark Hamill in The Last Jedi and not Luke Skywalker. That's the fucking problem. And so at the end of the day, you look at these things.
Mark Hamill had a problem.
Yeah, I know. We did.
Character was taken.
I know, but my point is, like, you got to look at these movies and go, are they fun or are they not?
No.
Not all of them have to be deep and emotional. Like, there is a time for that. Like, the end of episode 7 of the Clone Wars was the time for that.
Yeah.
But these theatrical releases, like, guys, you got to gauge yourself and be like, are people going to want to go back and watch this, or is it going to be so fucking depressing?
I think
and
that's
serious?
why Rogue One was so good, because they took a different direction. I mean, K2SO was a character that we didn't have. He was totally opposite of everything that we've had.
Baze and Chirrut too. I mean, they were fun. Like, you know, the whole dynamic.
They pushed it in a new direction, and I would even argue that the end of Rogue One, everybody that you loved died, but it ended on a high note. Because it was leading into a new hope.
Things.
I'd say even Empire Strikes Back. Everybody says, man, it's that's the sequel template. Everybody wants to say, you'll never have a sequel like Empire Strikes Back. Well, that movie, dark at the end, Luke gets his hand cut off, Han's frozen in carbonite, you find out Vader's his father, and it still ends on a high note.
Yeah, you're right, Scott. If you're not willing to kill any character in your film, then you're not telling a good story.
Exactly. There has to be stakes. There has to.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the success of the John Wick films is that, as much of a badass as he is, you realize that at any moment he could be killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why I hate Superman, Scott. Sorry.
No, that's fine. The new one, I don't like him either.
Any of them for me. I mean, that's one of the things it's an issue I have.
Because there's no stakes to it. Yeah,
there's no risk there. Like, he's not going to be killed off. It's Superman. One, they're not going to do it that way, and he's invincible in like almost every way except for a glowing piece of green rock. Yeah. We're not going to talk about Superman anymore, but that's part of my issue with the whole DC thing. Now, boy, I almost went on a sidetrack of Michael Keaton reprising the role, which I can't even imagine right now. He did the McDonald's, what kind of not a documentary, but what was it? Where he was
Founder?
Ed Croft. Yeah, right. He was
That was good.
Yeah,
That
I
was
liked
excellent.
it. I liked it, but I can't imagine that guy in that movie putting on a cape and a mask anymore. It's really hard
Who said
to
he was
imagine.
going to put on a cape and a mask?
He is. It was confirmed. He's absolutely putting on a cape and a
Jesus.
mask. Yeah, but he was great in Spider-Man.
Would
He
you?
was.
Yeah,
He's
it's
going
like
to have nipples?
that's like putting my. Yeah.
Well, he's supposed to be part of the Sinister Six.
Oh
before
boy,
the next
I don't even
Spider-Man
know what
movie.
that is. See, I lost interest already.
It's 6 Spider-Man villains teaming up to take him down.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfectly clear.
But yeah, that's a whole other side tangent. You know?
Yeah.
And Pete's worried about the and Pete's worried about the world between worlds being explained in The Mandalorian. You just told me about the Sinister Six. I have no fucking idea who those people are, and I don't care. That's right. All right, guys. We need to wrap it up. We went well beyond schedule. Most people that download this are going to lose interest within about I'd say about 15 minutes into the Star Wars talk.
They better not.
You're going to give him 15 minutes? I'll take the under.
Okay. I'm betting CJ will download and listen to the whole thing. Thank you, CJ. All right, guys.
Thank you.
We need to get off here. Pete, just tell everybody where they're probably not going to go to download this.
Well, if you're not watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, you can find us anywhere and everywhere. Our website is teamarivalspodcast.com. We're on Twitter at Team Arrivals Pod, on Instagram at Team Arrivals Podcast, and on Facebook at Team Arrivals Podcast. You can send us an email at the show at teamarivalspodcast.com. Online, you can find Elliot on Twitter at
TOR_Elliot.
You can find Ron at
TOR_Ron75.
And Scott, where can we find you?
I'm not anywhere.
See, there you go. Don't look for me on Twitter. Don't look for Scott on Twitter. You're just wasting your time. If you are watching us live right now, you can also catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts, like Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or any other of the popular podcatchers. And if you do love this show, we're just going to remind you, in order to bump up the numbers, here's what we need you to do. We need you to go back on, and we need you to subscribe. And then we need you to unsubscribe. And then we need you to resubscribe.